Empower your leadership journey with the CEO Series. Whether you're at the gym, strolling, or commuting, our impactful dialogues with world-class leaders are just a click away. Immerse yourself in the minds of visionaries shaping today's most influential companies and innovations. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership. Don't miss out. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms.
Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we bring together the most phenomenal leaders from across the globe and they talk through their career journey. Today, I'm honored to have a dear longtime friend. Ifeanyi Abraham is a globally respected strategist, storyteller, and systems builder. He's co-founder of FindingBlackExperts.com and chief strategy officer at SBB Media. He leads communications for presidents, founders, global change agents across Africa and the diaspora. Through innovation platforms like Texoma and groundbreaking initiatives, Her Story Global, he has built ecosystems that drive influence, visibility, and economic opportunity. And with that, I want to welcome my friend Ifeanyi. How you doing, man?
Thank you so much, Ron, for that glowing introduction.
It's so glad to have you here. You and I
I'm
go
doing very
back.
well.
Go ahead. There's a
Yeah,
little
I'm
light.
doing
Go
really
ahead.
well. Um, yes, it is. It's really good to be on with you. Uh, it's been a while. We've known each other for a long time now. You've been doing some pretty amazing things in the world of human resources, thought leadership across different industries. Um, the lake. I'm very excited to be having this conversation with you.
Okay, cool. Let's walk through your journey. Nigerian to Dubai, and how did you
Yes.
build up to the level that you're at today? Walk us through that journey. Give us a kind of a snapshot of what that looks like.
Fantastic. So I've always been entrepreneurial all my life. I started out my career. So my first degree was in economics. So I started out my career in human resources and finance. And this was in the early or late around 2009. Yeah? And I was working at a company and I was doing HR and finance, but I saw an opportunity to stories. And that was pretty much how I got into PR, comms, and marketing. I'd always had a flair for PR and marketing. And when I started working, first I started working in PR at Iroko TV. Iroko's it's a global platform for Nollywood. They raised over $30 million in venture funding. So I started working at Iroko. From Iroko, then I started writing for a tech platform called Techmoran, one of the longest standing tech platforms in Africa. And then from there, my career started to grow. I moved from there to Konga. Konga is one of the largest online shopping malls in Nigeria. They raised over 50 million in venture funding. Then financial technology companies, from mobile money to banking, switching, and licensing to
Mm.
remittance. So they are on the Nigerian a good presence in Africa. So I was doing a lot of these amazing things. But during all of this, my entrepreneurial side kept calling me.
Yeah.
So even while I was working, I started my goal web influencers was to provide PR and marketing for organizations. This is how I started doing some work with governments. I started working for governments in Nigeria, started working for a lot of organizations across finance, across banking, across oil and gas, and so many other industries. And then I decided at some point to leave my and I was doing this for a while, but the thing about Nigeria is we regularly have economic downtime, and political change always brings in
Yeah.
could potentially issue. But I stayed on and I continued, and then I became communication strategist for a candidate that went did elections in Nigeria and won the elections. At that point, this was around 2018. I told myself I've done a lot. At this point, I was writing for CNN, I was writing for Huffington Post in the UK, I was writing for over 50 other platforms, sharing content from media to
Mm.
technology to travel. I had done a Discover Nigeria series that went across different parts of Nigeria to test out the economic and tourism potential of different parts of Nigeria. So I began to make a name for myself in PR and comms. But
Okay.
there was something lacking for me. There was still that global viewpoint. There was still that global access that was lacking. I thought, for the want of a better word, I felt like a local champion.
Okay.
And this was what led me to take the decision to move to Dubai.
Okay.
So I pretty much just thought I'm a fast-paced decision maker. I pretty much in April, early April, around this time, and I told myself, I said, you know what, I'm going to move to somewhere else, another country. I moved to Dubai on
Mm.
holiday. I love the fast-paced nature of Dubai. Dubai reminded me of Lagos, but in a system where things work. Because you can
Yeah.
come to Dubai with $0 in your pocket, and if you're innovative enough, you can be a millionaire the next week.
Yeah.
That's the pulse of Dubai, and that's very very similar to what Lagos brings. So I moved to
Mm.
Dubai, 2018, and I started a platform called Nigerians in Dubai, Nigerians in DXB. I wanted to chronicle the impact and the lifestyle of Nigerians living, working in Dubai, because there were a lot of negative stories about Nigerians. Every
Yeah.
time I googled Nigerians in Dubai, I wanted to change that narrative. And I
Yeah.
built a community of over 28,000 people. We did a lot of top events with a lot of top organizations and so many things. But this was fantastic because I'm a community builder. Apart from Nigerians in Dubai, I built quite a few other communities. I built a beverage community that grew to over 100,000 people and got like renowned acclaim within the Nigerian beverage space. But there was a lot more. There was a lot more. And then 2019, I started working for a company that provided experts, subject matter experts to organizations within the UAE and different parts of the Middle East. And quickly, my entrepreneurial nature came in, and I blazed the
Yeah.
trail. Real quick, I
Yeah.
was the best at doing that. I built a relationship with the experts. You were one of the experts. In a very short time, I did over $600,000 in sales for the organization. I'm selling the expertise of these
Mm.
experts within the region. And all of this just led me to even further confirmation of the power that exists within the UAE.
Yeah.
And then in 2020, the pandemic came, and I produced a show for CNN Africa called CNN COVID Heroes and Changemakers. And I was talking to presidents, I was talking to some of the leaders that were determining the COVID-19 policy of organizations across Africa. I was talking to musicians, influential people, and it was such a very important moment for me. But the thing I will tell you about Dubai is that with Dubai, there's so many opportunities that present themselves to you. Every opportunity that you want to do, every opportunity can lead you to the success that you require. So I still needed time to try out a few things. So in 2021, I was an official ambassador of the Expo 2020 via my community Nigerians in DXB. Um, and then I needed to do more things. What led me to recruitment. I did some work for one of the largest recruitment companies in the region. Then I did some work in real estate as well. I worked for one of the largest real estate companies here. Then I did some work in citizenship by investments, selling passports, and over the course of all of these different careers, or I would call it all of these different jobs, I was always able to pull the required numbers. That was
Okay.
in real estate. I sold a couple of $1 million in property, in passports. I sold over $1 million in passports. So I was always able to pull these numbers. So I took the decision at some point that, you know what, it's time for me to go out on my own. It's
Okay.
time for me to put all of these resources together. And this is what led me to starting off Find Black Experts, starting off Find Experts, which was bringing a lot of my experience in one of my first jobs here to Rain. And then pretty much collaborating with Stephanie Busari. Stephanie Busari was the former head of CNN in Africa. So we launched SBB Media together. So I'm the chief strategy officer of SBB Media while she's the CEO, while I run my AI venture studio on
Yeah.
the side, which owns Find Experts, and a lot of the other things I'm doing. So, so many parts. It's been such a long journey, and it's been a fantastic journey.
Yeah, it sounds like a fantastic journey. I was with you part of that journey when you were at the agency because you were, I'm going to say you were kind of my representative, finding me slots to speak and all those kinds of things. But here's what
Yes,
I found so interesting in that is that you had all of these skills, you've done all these things, and you said, you know what? A lot of people would have said, I'm just going to continue doing this for the rest of my existence or whatever it is. But you said, you know what? Let me put all this package all of this and move it to a different level. Where did that
exactly.
come? Where did that come from? To say, you know what, I'm comfortable, but let me try and take it to the next level.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So, Ron, you are describing the story of my life. I am never okay with my comfort zone at all. This is the story of
okay.
my life. I was really comfortable in Nigeria to start with. I had just been part of an election that was won, so I could have coasted. Then, a lot of my friends and family asked me, "Why are you moving to Dubai at this point? Practically going to start again." And I was like, I always have this yearning to test myself again. I'm in a much more stable place in my life where I'm not looking to start again where things are concerned. But I always have this yearning. I always have this yearning to test. I'm an extremely passionate person. And I believe that if I'm not doing the things I'm doing with passion, I don't want to do it at all. That's
Mhm.
one of my major drivers. And I'm never afraid. I was speaking to someone today. I said I'll move to a new country today and I will start off something new and I would earn revenue. That's the sort of confidence I have in my ability to think and my ability to create value. It's only when you're afraid of creating value that you are afraid of certain kinds of things. So yeah, so an
Mhm.
extremely passionate person. I'm always looking for the next thing to excite me, the next idea.
Yeah.
Right now in my businesses, I'm learning to be a bit more grounded and structured to build long-term value, because
Mhm.
ultimately what differentiates the CEOs that truly create great things that outlast them is the ability to be grounded and build long-term value, which is where I am
Mm.
in my current career trajectory.
Okay. You say grounded. You have that anchor. But you had an anchor in Nigeria. But you say, you know what, I want more. So what was the biggest
Yes,
inspiration to say, where did all this come from? Because I know a lot of people say, no, I'm cool. I'm going to stay here. Where did this
yes.
come from? Was it something in your upbringing, or was something the parents, or somebody you kind of a mentor?
Okay, so you know, it was just always that search for global. That's what it was.
Okay.
Um, I, I would always read from an early age and expose myself to different things. And I remember a conversation I had with a friend of mine, and he was talking about how um looking at what we were always reading TechCrunch because I was in tech a lot. And I would read TechCrunch and I would read about the average American 17-year-old, 20-year-old who's raised $20 million, $30 million just to try out an idea. In
Yeah.
Nigeria, in Africa, we do not have this kind of opportunities. We have brilliant ideas, but we do not have people that are when venture capitalists come to Africa that they begin to look at the numbers must make sense.
Yes.
They begin to
Mm,
say
mm,
some other kinds of things. So there was always I wanted to have that global exposure. And coming to Dubai, I saw people give me funds to do different sides of businesses that I would never have ordinarily got in Nigeria. That was one of the things
mm.
that I experienced. And my experience in Dubai even has helped me to do business in Nigeria a lot more now. I do a lot more business in Nigeria. We launched Her Story Global. Her Story Global is a fantastic project that we just launched last month. It's a content engine to power female-led stories out of Africa.
Oh wow, I
African
love
women
that.
entrepreneurs are doing phenomenal things, phenomenal things. They're raising hundreds of millions of dollars. They're doing lots of impact-driven projects, but there was no one telling those stories. That was what led to us starting Her Story Global. And Her Story Global, we launched this book project. We sold over 1,000 copies now. We had a lot of very influential women entrepreneurs, from Queen Olori Atuashe III, to another venture capitalist who just raised the $30 million fund, to lots of other women across different places, to one of the biggest filmmakers out of Africa. She's done over $200 million in movie sales in the last 2 years alone. So we had a lot of these powerful women on this project, and we're doing so much more. Sometime this year, we launched another product called Understanding Africa's First Ladies. We're bringing together
Wow.
over 100 African first ladies to tell their stories of impact, because a lot of times we do not know the work that the African first ladies are doing, and they're doing a lot of work. Just we've been exposed to so much of them since we started this journey. So there are a lot of very amazing storytelling opportunities out of Africa that we're trying to harness now. And what has really
Mm.
helped to be able to have these bold ideas is my exposure coming to Dubai. Coming to
Yep.
Dubai, in Dubai, a project is not as audacious anymore. A project that would have been audacious in Nigeria, coming to Dubai, it's simple. It's an yeah, let's do it. You pitch it to
Yeah.
someone and they're ready to do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So yeah, so that's the kind of, that's what Dubai has helped me do. It blew my mindset. I'm no longer as impressed anymore about ideas. I have
Yeah.
ideas all the time. Let's test the idea out. Let's look at the idea on paper. Let's launch it. You come to, and people come to me with ideas. Oh, I think this is, once I think the idea is viable, I'm ready to put some money down. Let's launch it. Let's build it. Let's test it out. The fear of failure has left me a lot more since I moved to Dubai than when I was in
Yeah.
Nigeria. So those are some of the things I would say that moving out has really helped me achieve.
Yeah. You know what I thought about? You talk about the fear of failure, and I said these kind of courses should be taught in universities, because you go to school, you get these degrees, and you're
Yeah.
thinking everything's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all of a sudden, 20 years later, it's never going to work that way. So as you talk through that whole concept, uh,
Yes. Yes.
not failure, fear of failure. No, no, it's okay. This is all part of the learning curve.
It is. It is. I tell people this a lot. Every time I speak, every time I do these motivational sessions, or I give a keynote, this is one of the things I always talk about how let's kick out the fear of failure. And a lot of times, fear of failure comes from the upbringing. That's why we need to be exposed. And right now, we're at the age of artificial intelligence. With artificial intelligence, the gap between you in a village in Africa, or in Nigeria and Ghana, and someone in the US, New Zealand, is a lot shorter now. We're
Mm,
seeing the rise of China as a global power now. China can't call the bluff of the US. This is what technology and artificial intelligence have been able to help us achieve. We had something in AI called the DeepSeek moment earlier this year, where all of a sudden China was able to build large language models at a much cheaper price than the US was able to do. And it was such an awakening for the US. See what's happening with in cars, in EVs. China has a $10,000 EV that the US and Europe are scrambling because they cannot match those prices. So the world has changed. We are at a level of a
mm,
larger equality right now. So the gap between you. So right now, this is truly the time to say launch out, push out, write the
mm,
idea. The access to capital is a lot easier now. You can
yeah.
access capital a lot better now. So
Mm,
that's the advice, that's the kind of, we need to teach this kind of audacity in our schools. It's very, very important. We need to train it. We need to have courses about it. We need to have road shows teaching audacity, teaching kicking out fear, and teaching people to think again. I tell people a lot of times, motion is very, very important in journey of life. Motion. Keep moving. Keep moving. Just don't pause. Don't get stuck. Move, move, move. Sometimes it's tough, but keep moving. Keep moving. That's
Mm,
what's very, very important.
mm. I remember growing up as a kid. I grew up in the southern part of the U.S., and my mother would always say, "Get out of here and go out and do something." And it was always there. And my father said, "When you go away to college, don't come back here." Said it in a joking way,
Amazing.
but you understood what they meant. He said, "Go out and explore. Go out and do something."
Yes.
And I always,
Yes.
all my brothers and I, we always use as an anchor. So we knew that post university, there was no need to thinking about coming back to the small town, that you were going to do anything but fall into the same mode of people that had been there for X amount of years. I'm not saying that in a negative light, but that
Yes.
I looked at that as say, explore, explore, explore to see what's out there. And that's what kind of started off. And I would have never thought in 3,000 years that I would have come up in a town of 8,000 people, that I would be living between Dubai, New York, traveling to Singapore, Europe, and all those kinds of things. But it was because of the fact that groundwork was laid there.
Yes. Yes, yes. That groundwork is very important. I will tell you. I agree. So family plays a very big role, but at the same time, there's something that intrinsic value in all of us, and it's very important that we find that intrinsic value. And sometimes
Mm,
this helps us to rise above even the limitations of our family. The one thing my parents did well was education. They made sure that every single one of us had access to education that was, if we check now, was above their means. If we
mhm.
check, if I really check, if I really think back now,
Yeah.
a lot of times my parents had to stretch. They had to stretch to ensure that the kind of education that we had was better than what every other person had. I remember in secondary school, sometimes my parents wouldn't be able to pay fees, and I would have to wait outside. But I would keep going to school, and we would keep going to school, and eventually the fees would get paid. I missed a couple of sessions, but I would always go back to school.
Mm,
I remember
mm,
university, I got into university through something called a diploma program, and I was going to the classes. And when it was time for the exams, my parents couldn't pay the fees. And my mom came to me with me to school that day, and she said, "You know what, son? You've missed two exams already. I think we should try again next year." I said, "Mom, don't stop trying. It doesn't matter how many exams I miss, I
mm.
will pass this course." And
Yeah.
this encouraged my mom. My dad ended up selling a car that he had to make
Wow.
up my fees. And I did the exams, and I was one of the best. I was always one of the best in school without really needing to try so much, apart from the fact that I was blessed with a photographic memory. But I had this drive, and that drive was very, very important for me. So yeah, there's an intrinsic thing, and we even as I understood the role that I had to play to encourage my parents, to show them that their efforts were not in vain, that they should push. And yeah, so that's it. Really helps. It really helps. It really, really, really helps. But there's an intrinsic value in all of us. There's something that you need to
Mm,
find. You need to
yeah.
find that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Digging deep to find something to say, okay, I'm at rock bottom, but I got to climb back up and keep going to the so-called next level. So if you were to, I think there's a lag in our internet. If you go back and look at your career to where you are today, what is there a key moment that kind of said, okay, you're onto something here. How can we move beyond that? Are you hearing me? Because I think you're frozen.
Kim. Yes. Yeah. He said yeah. He says there a key moment. I missed that last part. Key moment that what?
A key moment that kind of said, you know what, I'm onto something here, and I'm going to move beyond that. Because one of the things we discussed earlier, that everything was moving, 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 but you were always yearning for that. Was there a key moment that you said, you know what, I have to try this. I have to test it to see whether it works. Describe that key
So
moment.
Ron, okay, I've had multiple key moments.
Okay.
And you know what? I tell people, do not neglect any success you've ever had. Do not neglect any success you ever had. Use it as fodder. And sometimes when you forget your abilities, remind yourself with those successes. I remember when I was working my first job in Nigeria, and and we had new e-commerce companies coming to the market, technology companies. I went on LinkedIn and I found 20 top CEOs, and I messaged all the top CEOs, and I got
Wow.
meetings with 7 of those top CEOs. I was young, I was 19, but I already had some of that audacity. And so that was the first moment to me. These CEOs invited me and they listened to me. After that, I moved on. I started PR and comms, and I saw that I had an aptitude for it. I remember
Mm.
we had this major strike action in Nigeria, and I had an idea and I shared with the marketing team. Then I said, you know what? I'm going to write articles around this, and we're going to use these articles to push videos that you will record and we put these videos that they would have hundreds of thousands of views, and all of a sudden I was the one that people wanted to read where these things were concerned. So at different
Mm.
times I had confirmation of my abilities. Like all of my life, I tell people I've always got all my jobs from LinkedIn. I've always been headhunted, and it did not stop even in Dubai. All my classmates, when I was done with university, the expectation in Nigeria was to go into a financial institution, was to go into a bank. I never wrote a bank aptitude test, never.
Mm.
That's sort of grace. And I can also not downplay the role of grace, the role of Jesus, the role of God in my story and in my journey, because there's some audacity that also comes from your
Hey.
assurity in grace and faith
Yeah.
and prayer. I can never downplay that. So at different points in my life, I kept having this confirmation. I remember when I moved from my first job to my second job, I saw an opportunity. I saw a news story about and then I had access to a blog. So I wrote an article around it and I sent it to the guy before I published it to say, I'm about to publish a story about you. And he said, please, I would prefer you don't publish the story. I'll give you like an exclusive later. And once he said that, the next thing I hit him up with, actually, I've been trying to reach you. I'm interested in working at the organization that you're
Wow.
in. And he invited me for an interview, and he offered me a job that week that was double my salary. And after that role, the next role I went to again was triple my salary this time. The next
Mm.
role that I went to. And then when I moved to Dubai, my very first job, I got my very first job from doing Nigerians in DXB. I was doing Nigerians in DXB, and I was running a podcast. Now that podcast was initially targeting Nigerians, but then I received a random cold email from someone saying they wanted to appear on my podcast, non-Nigerian. But I read the profile and I said, okay, you know what? This person's profile could fit because they have
Yeah.
a product that actually does target Nigerians. So I offered them. So I did the podcast. And a week later, I got a message saying, you know what? I'm actually hiring for a role. Would you be interested? And that's
Wow.
how I started my first job. My second job was from a client of ours that was working with me. And during the pandemic, this client would send me a message one day to say, how are you doing actually? Are you looking to move? I really enjoyed all the times I was working with you. And I was not initially ready to move. But when I was ready to move and I hit the client up, I got hired, double my salary again.
Wow.
So there were always those opportunities. Even my last job, I started out as a manager, and by the time I left the company, I was offered the CEO role at the company.
Mm.
I
Mm.
was already a director at that point. Yeah, but that wasn't what it was for me. I have a yearning to build different things. Yeah. So yeah, there's always that mindset, and there's still a lot more for me to. I'm
Yeah.
learning so much more. I'm
Yeah.
always reading about the stories of entrepreneurs that have one of my best entrepreneurs is Rockefeller. Rockefeller is he's one of the stories I like to read about the audacity of Rockefeller and what he built
Mm.
and
Yeah.
how his story still resonates even today. I
Mm.
read about the story. Rockefeller is one of my the key people that have influenced my life. So
Yeah.
there are people like that that I read about, and so many other things that I've learned. So there's always the room to gain knowledge. Knowledge is very, very critical. So yeah, that's what I'll say
Yeah.
about the some of the moments.
Okay. There's a couple of areas that I would want to explore a little more. You talked about learning. So if the person would be listening in on this podcast, let's say, okay, you've already reached this so-called level, but you said, I read about Rockefeller, I say, I'm going to send a note to the top 20 CEOs. I don't care about the response. And you get almost a 30% hit rate. You don't get that on a blast email, which is a large number. So how do you stay, I
Yes.
always say, how do you stay ahead of the curve? How do you learn? How do you stay in the game? Are you just going through nobody just goes through the motion? You say, okay, what's next? How can I do this? Even if you're at an organization, because if you're the chief strategy officer, you've got to understand current state, future state. How do we get to whatever perceived future state is?
Yes, yes. Ron, I always have to be on top of things, top of new technology, top of innovation, top of the markets. I even read things that information that I'm currently not using at the moment, but I have the information in my store bank.
Mm,
I'm always reading about, for example, MicroStrategy and what they are doing in AI and gold, and what they are doing in Bitcoin and gold. I'm always reading about. I heavily follow. Even though I don't like Elon Musk, but I'm always very interested about a lot of the things that he's doing
yeah,
in technology, in EVs.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm always reading about that. So I'm always reading. I'm always reading, and reading has changed now. Reading is no longer just the traditional reading a book
yeah,
or or X. Twitter is a very brilliant way to read now. People have distilled information into newsletters, Substacks, newsletters, long
yes,
Twitter threads. That's where, so you
yes,
can deep dive into that information, deep dive heavily into it, and it helps you to heavily connect the dots. Sometimes you never know what particular knowledge will be used for. That's why people do not read anymore these days. Read. They don't just be on this platform just for the fun of it. Read. Follow some of the thought leaders. I follow a lot of thought leaders. For example, today I was reading the earnings report from Microsoft,
mm,
and what Satya Nadella and his amazing team have done in this
yeah,
last year.
yeah,
And that's one person that I heavily respect. I heavily
yes,
respect Satya Nadella as well. He's done he's done an amazing thing at a company that wasn't sexy. Microsoft wasn't sexy when he took up Microsoft,
yeah,
and he's really transformed Microsoft. I love to consume his videos. Every time he's on a podcast, I watch it
mm,
because he always has so many nuggets. Right? Microsoft always looks like the like they're playing behind everyone, but
yeah,
Satya Nadella is a deal maker. He's a
yeah,
deal maker.
yeah,
So that's one person that I heavily respect. So there are so many things like that. There's so many people to learn from. I learn
yeah,
from even people I don't like at all. That's one thing that's very important. I learn from people I don't like. I don't like. I see people that say, "No, I don't like that person. I'm not interested. I'm not going
yeah,
to read." No, it doesn't
yeah,
matter. The fact that I don't like you doesn't mean I can't learn something from you. So that's something
yeah,
that's very important. So we have to understand that learning has changed. Learning formats have changed. Podcasts, heavy. Substack newsletters, heavy. These are the new ways. And the use of tools now. Google has a tool called Notebook LM. Notebook LM, you can take an entire book or course and put in Notebook LM. There are so many tools that are available now to people. Like this is the best time for people in schools now. It's the best time. I keep telling them it's the best time. I keep telling them it's the best. This is much better than my time. When I my final year, I did.
yeah,
So as part of my final year, I did 7 research projects. So in Nigeria, we have a final year research project that we do, and everyone's supposed to do one. one, but I had a couple of my classmates that I charged and I did their research project. So I always had a research background. So I did MBs. But now research is a lot easier. There are
Hmm.
tools like OpenAI's deep research
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
way
Mm-hmm.
in 20 to 30 minutes. So there's so many tools now. This is the time to just build. It's easy to build. I can prototype a new product today with Replit, with Lovable, with a lot
Mm.
of the AI tools that are available. Right now, I'm a coder myself. I code practically with the tools that are available. So I tell people like this is the best time ever
Yeah.
right
It's
now. We are in the age of super intelligence. It's the best
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
So if you're
I
not building something, then you are shortchanging yourself.
well, this is why I say the education system needs to be completely overhauled. The way that we educate kids, we're still using a model that started when schools first started. I remember my kids who went to school the first day they came back with books and all of these kinds of things. And so, if the technology is changing, if the dynamics of the work, I'm going to say the workplace or the world is changing, we're kind of educating people for a different set of skills that is no longer going to be needed. I just read an article the other day about China had just opened up, and I posted this on LinkedIn, basically stating that nobody's safe. It was an AI generated hospital, and they were talking about the impact of how many patients that can be seen each day, a
Yes.
92% accuracy rate. This is going to if it can happen to doctors.
And it will keep getting better.
Yeah, if it can
Yeah.
happen to doctors, if it can go into the medical field, I don't understand the intricacies behind it, but it tells you that things have got to maybe change. So what I'm want to give you a scenario. If you're speaking to educators based on what you've gone through, what advice would you give them to develop the next level of leaders, educators, or whatever it may be? If you can kind of coalesce everything that
Yes.
you've gone through and visionary doing these kind of things, what some key advice would you give, you say university presidents or whatever it would be?
Yeah. There yeah. So there are a few things that need to be taught heavily. And one of them is creativity. Creativity is one thing that needs to be very, very early in our curriculums. Another thing is critical thinking and questioning norms. Critical thinking and questioning norms. That's what has led to a lot of innovation today. Critical thinking and questioning, asking the question, why? Why is this? Why does this happen like this? So creativity, critical thinking, questioning norms, strategy. Strategy is very important. A lot of our schools do not have strategy as a topic or even a subject at all. We still have a lot of very classic. So I would say that within a lot of the traditional STEM subjects that are being taught, there's need to begin to teach creativity. There's need to begin to teach critical thinking and questioning norms. There's need to begin to teach strategy. There's a need to teach audacity and fearlessness.
Hmm.
There's a need to incorporate all of these into the curriculum, but because this is what our children need. This is what our students need. That this is what the people that are going on to change the world and change. This is what they were able to learn by themselves. If we can find a way to include this in our curriculums, then we will truly be able to change the world. We
Mm.
will truly be able to change the world. If my child can grow up with a life of no fear, no
No
fear,
fear.
a life of creativity, a life of strategy, a life of ideas, like idea generation as a thing, then we have truly done things as parents and as people that are changing. So yeah, so the curriculum needs to be, and this now includes also adding courses like AI,
Yeah.
like and a lot of these other
Yeah.
more practical things. But we need to teach some of these more these other things that are soft skills. That's why I have an expert that I booked a lot that teaches creativity,
Mm-hmm.
and he's one of the most booked experts. He teaches creativity, and until now he has included artificial intelligence, and just help teaching creativity to a team can significantly help to double numbers. And in my team, I'm always encouraging creativity.
Mm.
Bring new ideas. Bring new ideas to the table as much as you can. I always want a new idea. What have you learned from trends? Trend watching, trend spotting. This is very, very important. What are the opportunities that are available within the marketplace? So these are certain things that we need to find ways to include in our curriculums for sure.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So SBB Media, walk us through how this came about. What is the focus of SBB Media? So how are you? What are you
Yeah.
doing there? So if anyone's interested that's listening in on the podcast, walk us through SBB Media's focus.
Media. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Ron. So SBB Media is really it's the brainchild of Stephanie Busari. Stephanie is one of the she's the most celebrated journalist in Africa. She's a multiple award-winning journalist. She's won an Emmy. She's won so many other awards across some of the biggest awards in journalism. I know I've been speaking to her for many years about the opportunity that exists in helping African leaders and organizations to tell their stories to a global world. A lot of them are not aware of those things. And then also the opportunity, because she's told some of the most impactful stories out of Africa and told it in a thoughtful, human way. So we've been having this conversation for years. And last year, again, the conversation happened to start. And I said, you know what, Stephanie? I think it's time. You've done 25 years at CNN, 25 years in journalism. You've done 16 years at CNN. You've worked at BBC. You've worked at a lot of these global organizations. It is time. Your talent is needed to shape storytelling. Your talent is needed to help organizations that are coming to Africa. Your talent is needed to do some of the important documentaries to document our, because our story, the African story, can only be told thoughtfully by Africans. A lot of people have tried, the West has tried, but has not been able to capture that story well enough. So that's really the vision of SBB Media. And since we started, it's been a roller coaster. We have been
Mm.
involved in so many impactful projects, so many impactful projects. I look forward to waking up every day to work on
Wow.
SBB Media. I was in Nigeria for the first time in 6 years last month. For
I
SBB
saw
Media
that. I saw
related
that. Yeah. Yeah.
projects. I'm going back to Nigeria next month. Yes, I'm going back to Nigeria next month again. I'm hopefully going to France in June. I'm hopefully going to China as well in June. And these are all with SBB related projects. So yeah, so it's really that. So we're taking the bull by the horn in terms of the opportunity to really capture and tell that African story to the globe. We have so many amazing projects coming up. I mentioned Understanding Africa's First Ladies. We're doing another project called Queens of Africa. We're doing another project for so many things I can reveal, things I cannot reveal. But we're working with organizations, we're working with business leaders in Africa and different parts of the world that are interested in Africa. Let's have conversations around telling your story. Our background is pure. We have the PR, we have the journalistic background, we have the marketing background, so we understand conversion metrics. So
Wow.
we are the right organization to speak with, where meeting all of your goals are concerned, whether it's perception, whether it's PR, whether it's marketing to the last mile marketing, or whether it's government relations. We understand this. So yes, so that's really what the focus and goal of SBB Media is, and I'm very excited to be working with Stephanie on this amazing company.
Wow, that's amazing. One of the as we begin to close out, one of the goals of the CEO series is to bring together people like yourselves, that's just to walk through your career journey. Because as I said, lots of times we get caught up in thinking it's all going to be like a ladder, and it's a lattice. You're going to go here, this is going to work. You learn from here, and you keep moving beyond that until you figure out finally where you're going to be. And it could be totally different than what you started out with. And you were able to bring all of that into fruition during our session today. So what would you look to say would be your closing thoughts on our session today, or advice you could give budding entrepreneurs? They've got thoughts, maybe they're afraid or whatever it is. What is some advice you would give them? I think you're frozen. You still, Ifeanyi, are you still there?
Yeah.
Go,
Yeah.
go ahead.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
So what
Yes, I'm
advice?
here, Ron.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm
So
here.
what advice is, I'll rephrase that.
Can you hear me?
I hear you. I hear you now. I hear you now. But the question I was asking was that what closing thoughts would you have for people that are stuck, people that are thinking of something else? What advice would you give them as we begin to close out? Go ahead. I think we've got another lag. Um,
Okay. So I didn't catch that fully, but yes. So I heard advice for people that are struggling, people that are
yeah.
thinking of something else. Um, my advice to you would be not to stay too long, w- just in that current situation. Do not stay too long, and don't care too much about what society only cares about success.
Yeah.
That's what I'll tell you. Society only cares about success. So do not think too much about what the world around you or the people are going to. It's fine for you to begin again. It's fine
Hmm.
for you to go back to the drawing board and draw the path properly. Some of the most successful people, athletes, elites, sports stars, and so many other people, they had points where they had a major injury or they had things that made them question their abilities. It's fine for you to start again. And beyond that, if you are currently in a place and you feel like there's so much more that you can offer, I want you to trend watch. I want you to develop role models. Role models no longer have to be people you have direct contact with. You can access a role model through their books, through their videos, through
Yeah.
their tweets, and you can use this to chart the course of your life
Mm.
if you need to do that. So the traditional mentorship is out of the door now. If you have access to them, great. If you don't, you can still be mentored by someone without having direct access. So
Okay.
use the tools that are available to you. There's so many free tools. There are free AI tools. Learn AI. No matter what you do, learn AI. We are at ground zero for AI. I want to tell you that for free. We are at ground zero. It's day one for AI. Google has free AI courses.
Mm.
Google has free project management courses. ChatGPT has free AI courses. Go and learn it and start to think about how can I introduce AI into everyday solutions. Every
Yes.
single industry it will be disrupted by AI. Every
Exactly.
single industry.
Yeah.
How can you be the one that brings that disruption?
Okay.
And AI innovation will need operations specialists. You will need project managers. So there will be new roles that will come up: AI project managers, AI operation specialists. So like we say, AI is disruptive, but at the same time, there's room for you as well. I tell people the people that will be disrupted by AI are the people that have not learned to
Yeah.
coexist with AI. Those
Hmm.
are the people that will be
Okay.
disrupted by AI.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's my advice to people. Don't be afraid to fail. Seek mentorship, not just to learn their content. You can follow their live classes. Give ChatGPT the prompt. I want to model my career like this particular person. What are some of the things I need to do on a daily basis? Take each day as a learning path for yourself, and you
Okay.
will truly have the chance to succeed.
Ifeanyi, thank you so much for making time for us today. Being on the show, leaders like yourselves
Yeah, thank you so
always
much,
bring
Rob.
an interesting story, and I'll be connecting with you once I get back, and we'll take it from there, man. So thank you so much. Hang on for a minute
Fantastic.
before we close out. We're going to close out now. For people, Peter Piccinini, Mohammed Azim, thank you so much for tuning in today, and like, share across the globe for our show every Friday, CEO series at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. Dubai time. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next Friday morning.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.